Nature's Mosaic, and this is the video tutorial that you'd need for the heart rock kits that I provide. You can also use this video tutorial if you've just done a workshop with me. So if you just finished the workshop and you've got a nice little heart rock, get an example piece. So if you just did the workshop and you've got this heart rock that you're ready to grout, this one is already grouted, but this tutorial you can just skip to the end bit and it's going to go ahead and show you how to grout that rock. So you can skip past the unboxing and all that and just go on to the grouting portion. But I'm going to go ahead and unbox this. These are my little kits that I sell at my craft markets and here in Humboldt County at different stores. So what we've got in here are the 2 rocks, and I like to provide 2 just because it's fun to do with a friend, or if you want to do both yourself, you can make one for yourself, give one as a friend to a friend, or you can, if you'd like, find one big rock and all the supplies in here will be enough to cover one big rock, kind of like the one I just showed. So you can do 2 small ones which are provided, or you can go ahead and go to the riverbed and find yourself a nice big rock. So that's what comes in there, 2 small ones. Got a paintbrush. This is the type of glue that we're going to use, and you can find that at Michael's, or sometimes the dollar store will have them if you're interested in carrying on with this mosaic project later on. This is all pre-cut stained glass, and then this is a sealant, which is our last step today. This is our grout, and this is that beaded border, and I'll kind of bring in my example piece. So that's what this is here, the beaded border. And then finally, this is my card, my website, and if you're watching this, you already found your way there. But I do offer lots of different video tutorials on my website too, so it links up with my YouTube account and you can check all of them out if you're interested. So that is what is in your kit. Just a few things that I'll say about the things in your kit. This grout is mixed with water to make kind of a pudding consistency. Some of the things, the questions that I get in my workshop is, oh, is this water and do you mix it with the grout? No, this isn't water, this is the sealant. So this is our last step. You just need water from your tap, and I'll go over how to mix that later. But just know this is sealant, not water. All right, so a few things that you're gonna need in addition to what I provide are something to mix the grout in. And I just have this today, but what I normally like to use is like an old yogurt container that I'm gonna throw away anyway. Something like that you can just either reuse, or you can, if you know you're gonna throw it out anyway, it's kind of nice to give it one last life before you do. And then you're gonna need some paper towels or a cloth of any type, a rag. And then what I recommend, you don't have to do this, but I really like using a little silicone spatula, and that's because when I grab my handy dandy rock again, when I go in to spread the grout, this is nice because it kind of gives as you press it in between the tiles. So it's not hard enough that it's gonna crack, pop your tiles off of your piece, not usually. So it gives just enough to like press it in between each little crack without applying too much pressure. So this you can get, the dollar store has them. You can also, put a glove on and use your hands, but I like this tool. So if you have one laying around, an extra one in the kitchen, or if you want to buy one specific for this activity, then that's great. All right, so let's get started with the first thing we're gonna do here. So the first step is we're gonna pick one of the rocks, or if you're doing a big one, you just have the one rock in front of you. And we're gonna use this as our drawing tool. So these guys are brand new, so you're gonna have to cut the top off of it. Don't try and squeeze it out. It won't work unless you cut the top off. Not like I've done that before. So you're gonna go ahead and start by drawing your outline. And I will just say, like I say with all of my workshops, is that I do hearts. You don't have to do heart. You could do anything you want to do. I just kind of show them for my workshops because it's kind of a nice, easy, elegant first design if you're new to mosaics. But you can do whatever you want to do. People have done all sorts of different, you know, sea creatures, flowers, spirals. I mean, it's just endless. So feel free to mix it up and do whatever you want to do. So I've got my outline here, and that's the first step. The next step is I'm going to go and grab my beaded border, and I'm going to make sure to cut 2 pieces so that if you are doing the heart design, you can go ahead and get a point here and a point here. Instead of doing one continuous piece, and then one of the points is going to end up being a little curvy or a little lumpy. So that's why I recommend doing 2, and I'm just kind of gauge it up. Let's see. Always recommend that if you cut it a little less than you think you need, then it's easier to add on to it. I'll show you what I mean here. Unless I cut too much, then I'll show you what I don't mean. So then you're just gonna lay that down on your border. Oh wow, I did it actually just right. So what I meant by that is that if you think that, you know, you can go ahead and cut it a little bit less than you think you'll need. So say that I had more there and I would have to lift it up off the glue and cut it. And that's kind of a sticky mess. So if you can avoid it, you know, the best way to do that is to just cut it a little shorter than you think you need. Then you can always cut smaller pieces and be more precise and get it just the length that you want. But so that's also what I mean, like getting this point here and getting this point here. See, I'm using 2 pieces rather than one continuous piece, so I can get those nice points. Let's see if I can do that with this side. So I did it a little less than I think I'm gonna need. And then I can just add on, and it just ends up looking like it's a continuous line of bead, even though it's not, and I had to add on. So now I can kind of gauge. I still have a gap, so I'm gonna have to do that again. If you have tweezers, that is something that could come in handy, especially as we start placing the glass. If not though, I mean, I tend to do mine mostly without tweezers, but it can be helpful, especially for these tiny little projects, like these little small rocks. Okay, so I have my beaded border, and now we're just gonna go back to childhood in a way and try and color within the line. So we did our outline, and now we're gonna go in with the glue, and we're going to grab these guys and just start puzzle piecing it together within our border that we just made. So fun bit, I mean, it's all fun, but this is exciting. I just get excited about glass. Whenever I get a new shipment of glass, it's always like Christmas morning. So some of this glass is shiny and kind of has like a opal-like sheen on one side, and then the other side is more flat. So take a minute and look through all of your glass and see what you've got. And this is kind of fun because you can, you know, figure out the colors that you want and the scheme. But take a sec, look through your glass, decide what you want to use. You have more than you're going to need in that little bottle. I know it doesn't look like a lot, but once it lays flat, it really covers a lot of surface area. So now I'm going to go ahead and put more glue on. Also, another question I get in the workshops is, you know, oh, I have glue on the outside. Is that going to dry clear? Is it going to be a problem? And it does dry clear, so don't worry about that. Also, you're going to have grout up in here along your edge. So chances are any glue that's spilling over is going to be covered up by grout. And I'll kind of show you that with this example piece here. You can kind of see the edges here, how the grout got squished up in there, to use the technical term. So now for our next step, we're going to go ahead and put the glue inside. And for these smaller rocks, I would recommend just filling it all in with glue. But people, again, that's just a recommendation. In the workshops, I'm always excited to see and interested to see how people, like what their process is. So I like to just go for it. You don't have to. You can, of course, do it any way you want. You could do it section by section with the glue. You could do it piece by piece, like putting glue on each piece and then putting it down. You could design it on your table. I've had people in my classes do that outline, design it, and then even, some people will take a picture of it and then transfer it onto their piece. It's totally your call. I'm just gonna go for it because that's what I do. So now I've got my glue on, and something I'll say about the glue is that I don't want it to be super thick. Because what happens if my glue is super thick is that when I go to press my pieces down, imagine it's like a little moat around. The glue is like a little moat. And if it rises up level with or even over top of my glass, that's a problem. One, because it's a sticky mess, and two, because when we go into grout later, that grout needs a place to go around each edge of the tiles. So we want to make sure that we leave room around each edge of the tile for the grout to go, because that's what's really going to cement your piece together. Okay, so now I'm just going to start in placing it the way I want, getting the color scheme that I want, and just having fun with it. One more thing that I'll note is that your pieces do not want to be touching. Don't let your pieces touch. If you can see a little tiny gap around each piece, then you're good to go, because again, that's where the grout needs to go. And if the pieces are touching, then the grout can't quite get in around all the pieces. So I am just gonna go ahead and start putting my pieces on, and then we will pop over to the next step in just a second. So here is my heart rock, and it is all glued on there. I've checked each piece, make sure that it has enough glue to secure it. So now's the rough part. Now's the part where you have to wait. So if you did this this morning, I would suggest waiting until the following morning to grout it. You can, if you did it in the evening, just wait till the following morning. You just want to make sure that the glue is good and dry, it's had enough time to cure, and then we're going to come in and I'm going to show you how to mix the grout and apply it onto your piece. So this is kind of the halfway point. All right, so we're going to set this aside, let it dry. Then we're going to come in and we're going to grout it. So I lied. We're actually going to go ahead and grout now, since I am rather impatient, which is surprising for someone who loves the art medium that requires a lot of patience. So I am going to go ahead and show you guys how to grout this piece, which is a larger rock that I did earlier, and it is all set, and you can see that the glue dries clear. So we're going to go ahead and grout this guy with our packet. And this little packet of grout, surprisingly, should be enough to do a larger rock like this. It really doesn't look like much, but when you think about the fact that, it's a big surface area, but it really is only getting in between all the cracks. So we're gonna go ahead and mix this. So the number one trick that I would recommend that I have learned the hard way is that when you're using just a little bit of grout like this and you don't have access to like a larger, like my larger boxes of grout where if I add too much water, I could just keep dumping grout in there to make it the right consistency. But you only have a little packet. So I would recommend, in order to prevent yourself from adding too much water, to go ahead and just put about half in here, mix it, and try and get the right consistency. It's super easy to accidentally add too much water. So that's what I'm going to show you today. I still add too much water, and I've been doing this 8 years, 10 years. I don't know. I've been doing this a long time. So that's about half my grout. And then I'm gonna add just a little bit of water. And again, we're looking for like a pudding consistency. I'm gonna take my spatula. Highly recommend this spatula. And I'm just gonna mix that in. So, I mean, that did not seem like very much water at all, but it's still like a little bit, I don't know. It would work, but I like it to be a little thicker. So it kind of drops off of when I go like that, you can see it's dropping off of my spatula pretty easy. I like it a little thicker than that. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the rest of my grout now. I might add a teeny bit more water, but not too much. And the nice thing too about this grout, and the reason why I pick it in this color, because grout comes in all different colors. You can even buy glitter for your grout, which I think is amazing, like a specific type of glitter. But the one thing I like about this grout is that it's more or less the same color as the rocks, as the river rocks that I provide in these kits. So what happens is you get this, like between this and the fact that my tiles that I use are 1/8 inch, so they're really, really thin. You get this look where people have even asked me if the rocks are inlaid, you know, where I carve out a bit of the rock and then place my tiles in, just because the grout itself ends up looking, here's my example piece again, ends up looking like the same color as the rock. So it kind of blends in, and that's why I like to provide this color for all my kits. Okay, so this, this is a little wet. See, I did it. It's still kind of comes off of my spatula pretty quick. But ideally it should, like this is okay. My preference is just to have it not fall off the spatula when I turn it to the side. It's almost there. So if I were not happy with the thickness and I were more patient than I am, I would set this aside and just let it sit for 5 minutes, and then enough moisture would evaporate and it would become a little thicker, and I would feel better about using it. But I'm just gonna go ahead. It just means that this is gonna need a little more drying time, which is okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and start. So your piece is gonna look really ugly for a little bit. Heads up. My daughter is always just like aghast that I do this part to my work. You've made it look so ugly, Mom. Like, it's okay. You're gonna wipe away the grout and it will be beautiful once more. Never fear. So what I'm doing here is making sure that I am pushing gently the grout into each crack. And also using the spatula, again, killer tool, to bring it up around that edge. And it's okay if it gets a little messy out here. Again, it's like almost the same color. Once it's dried, it's a little dark right now. Once it's dried, it's almost the same color as the rock, so you can go ahead and kind of wipe that away and you're not gonna notice it. So don't worry if things get a little too messy. So again, bringing it around the edges. And there, I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a little hole right there. You'll be able to tell real quick where the air bubbles are. Around the edges. So this guy here, this is the part where I tend to mess up quite a bit, is I apply too much pressure to the point when I'm grouting, and then these beads kind of like break off, and I have to stop what I'm doing, remove the grout from that area, and re-glue. Wait, save a little bit of my grout, cover it, and make sure it keeps moist. Save a bit of my grout and go in once the glue is dried again. Same thing for if you pop a tile off on accident, which sucks, but it's not the end of the world. And you can definitely just remove the grout from that area, take the tile off, put some more glue, and then you're gonna have to have that waiting process again, but it's worth it. But just be really gentle when you go and press, especially right here, because this one tends to, the beaded border tends to accidentally get bumped and knocked off pretty easily. So I'm just gonna continue filling this with grout, and then we'll come back and I'll talk about waiting times. So after I go ahead and leave the grout on there for about 15 to 20 minutes, I'm gonna take my slightly damp rag and I'm gonna go ahead and start wiping that off. I recommend doing this in 2 steps. So basically you would, after the 15-20 minute wait time, you'd come in and wipe off most of the grout and then wait another 15 minutes and do the polishing bit. So I call it polishing because it's like most of the grout is gone, but you're just going in there and making sure that all the tiles look nice and they don't have any grout on the surface. So now I'm going to come in with my sealant and a paintbrush, and I'm just going to paint over top of the entire piece, beads and all. So I'm pretty much done. I did that layer of the sealant with the paintbrush, and then I waited for it to sink in for about 5 minutes before I came in with my rag, and I slowly went over the edge and the surface of my tiles. And it's important to get the surface of your tiles because if you don't, that sealant, which is mainly made to soak into the grout, will rest on the surface of your tiles and kind of create this weird milky sort of layer that we don't want on your gorgeous, beautiful stained glass. So I just made sure that I went over with my rag and just wiped that away from the surface of my tiles. But now when you're done with that, this is a rock that is finished, and you can put it outside in your garden. It'll be totally fine in the rain and the sun. And you can put it inside too. A lot of people put it inside, but don't worry, you can put this guy outside in the rain now that it's nice and sealed. I do want to share with you guys before you go something that I do to my rocks, and that is I do an enamel seal over top of the entire rock and the glass and grout. So you can kind of tell the difference here. You can see where it dripped down, and it really makes it look like it's a wet rock on the riverbank. And also it makes the tiles themselves look a little shinier. So that's optional. It's not actually something that you need to do. The sealant that you just did will be perfectly fine. But if you do want to have that additional sealant and just the more shiny look, which I like, this is that I use. So it's a gloss enamel interior exterior spray. I get mine at Ace. It's about $5. You can get it at any hardware store though. Just make sure it's interior exterior and gloss. And that is pretty much it. So if you have any questions at all, regarding the process or the rock or maybe different kits that I offer, whatever it is, send me an email. You can find that in the link or on my website. And I would be glad to get back to you and answer any questions that you have. Also, if you feel like sharing, please find me on Facebook and Instagram. I really love seeing what other people make. I hope you had fun with this, and thanks again for supporting my business.